Happy Friday, everybody. It is 9 o'clock, and you are watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Jane Monreal. If you just downloaded the WCNC Plus app to your Fire TV or Roku or Apple TV, we welcome you. Thank you for spreading the word to your family and friends, because here in the Impact Studio, we just bring you the news as it happens, live, raw, unfiltered many times, and that makes for quite an exciting, at times, show. So a different kind of newscast as things are just kind of operated by a two-person band here, Carlene and myself, this morning. All right. At this point, we do want to update you on some breaking news. This is a terrible crash starting out the Friday morning in Iredell County. I-77 completely shut down here northbound. As you can see, those flames blazing with Iredell Fire posting this earlier. We can confirm one person was killed in this wrong-way crash involving a tractor-trailer heading through Iredell County on the northbound side near mile marker 42 in the Troutman area. It happened just after 2 o'clock, and another car involved with the rig. So the latest word we're hearing now is that it is going to be closed for hours and remain shut down here until about 11 o'clock this morning. So I know, Chris, you were in the studio. You just came off the set there from WCNC Charlotte and Majestic Storm covering traffic. I mean, the crash itself, so horrible, but that really impacts now the morning commute. And I know that has been a parking lot for most of the morning.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. The last update that Majestic just gave was the backup was about 10 miles. And what you're actually looking at is not all the NCDOT cameras move. They're called actually JPEG cameras, so they update it every minute. But before this morning, this really hit around 4:30 is where it really started to see the traffic impacts. This wasn't a backup here because this happened around mile marker 42. You're looking right here at mile marker 36.6 to be precise. It's right in this area that traffic's not moving. And some of those areas that actually were caught in the backup, they physically have to be turned around and take the exit previous to this. And you mentioned around 11 per drivenc.gov. So this is for NCDOT's reports. Most recent update is 11:11 that they're going to be opening this back up. And we mentioned this briefly. You hate these scenarios. It was a young man in his 30s, passed away, wearing a seatbelt but still ejected from the vehicle. And then there was an overturned semi in the middle of the highway. So that's the reason why this is such a big deal. And oftentimes NCDOT, North Carolina. The reason why these take so long to be cleared is usually by investigation, especially if it's a fatality like what we saw this morning, and especially if it's involving a semi, because you can have other investigations that have to do with the companies with that, who's at fault. But if a semi is overturned, we don't know the degree of what it is. It could be a tanker that's carrying oil. You don't know the integrity of the road. So there's still a lot of questions that aren't answered here, but it's mile marker 42, right around Troutman, that this was all involved. It's just absolutely terrible. I feel bad. This is Majestic's first time of really reporting on something of this magnitude. You just never like to see it. So closing until about 11 a.m. Last update, this is the graphic that she had, about a 10-mile backup all in all. And it's just been a sea of red. And the only alternative here is taking Highway 21. And Destiny Richards all morning was saying, hey, 21 is slow, because when you shut down an interstate and you're bringing it to far less lanes with stoplights, it's adding on up to an hour plus for people's commute. And on top of it, it's Friday. People are heading north. Most likely, people are heading through. Bless you, by the way, Carlene. People are heading north, maybe trying to go to Virginia, get out of town. People take 77 if you're going up to Ohio, to Pennsylvania. There's a bunch of places that people might be traveling for the weekend in general. So yeah, just a tragic story. There will be some relief here in the next 2 hours, but we're just outside of our evening commute, and you just never like to start with this.
Oh, absolutely. All right. Well, thanks for that update, Chris. I know it's going to be a tough one for a lot of people trying to get out, and of course, the families of the victims involved. Let's move on to what is happening right now, because PGA Championship Day 2, they teed off early today. I always like golfing when it's cloudy, as long as the grounds are dry, but it is still kind of damp out there.
So if you're going to Quail Hollow, it's also great picture weather, because it's not overly sunny. So look at that.
Right.
You can snap that pic, throw it on Insta, you know? It's going to be better. However, it's one of those weird situations it's a mostly cloudy to an overcast day. But we learned about our clouds a few weeks ago, that whenever you have an upper level cloud, and this is mainly the cirrostratus or cirrocumulus sometimes, but the cirrostratus specifically, you can see where the sun is. So I think there's going to be times that it might look overcast, but you can actually see where that orb is in the sky. And the reason why that's significant is, yes, you are seeing less UV rays, but it's still enough solar energy that's going to crank up Mother Nature's thermostat. But check it out, 90 degrees. We went for it. We went bold. But I think this is just splitting hairs, because even if we hit 89 and we just miss it, it's still going to be the warmest day that we've had so far. It's still closer to a record than where we should be. We should be about 80 degrees. April was the warmest on record for Charlotte, and now we're starting to feel more like June in May. So we're trending definitely way warmer, and that's a continual trend, but that's a whole other different section of conversation. But I also want to talk about like how we feel, and this might be like over the top saying, Chris, okay, we understand this. It's always the first event. It's the first event for anything. It's whenever you have a heavy rain after it's dry. It's the first snow of the season, but sometimes it's the first kind of big heat. We've been at 88 degrees, but this time let's stop. Bring it in poll. How did everyone feel yesterday? Did you notice that it was a lot more humid than we've been?
Yes, but I know it should not be as humid, but in the shade and with a little breeze, it feels pretty nice.
Yes, exactly. That's the thing, because that's also another stat that I love to bring up. Sunshine makes you feel 10 to 15 degrees warmer. So the cloud cover will help out with that, but it also is going to prevent us from sweating. So whenever you have a high level of moisture, it kind of coats the outside of your skin so you don't sweat as much. So our bodies actually heat up. So that's what a heat index is all about, and it's a complicated formula that goes on for a page. But we do the easy math for you, that 89 to 90 at its peak could feel as warm as 92 to 95. I think we're really feeling like the lower 90s. So it's a day like today, say if you're doing yard work, extensively digging up a stump. I'm not doing that. It sounds terrible today.
I don't want to dig up any stumps.
Yeah, so your stump digging forecast, do it later. But no, if you're overexerting yourself and you feel yourself getting fatigue, and especially like a dry throat, and I know a dry throat can be anything, but this is one that I've really noticed since I've been here in the Carolinas, is if I'm doing yard work, if I just feel like a little scratchy in the back of my throat, that's actually the very first and most subtle sign that you're getting dehydrated. So that,
okay.
And people saying crazy, okay, well, I could be getting sick. It's allergies or something. No, next time you're out and about and you're overexerting yourself and all of a sudden you feel a scratched throat, that is telltale number one. Now, you can go without water for a while, but for me, I feel like I'm the one that if I overheat, I get headaches. So if you can try to really avoid that, just try to stay hydrated through the day. You're going to be just fine. Tomorrow's also going to be another warm one. But what about the storm potential? Our big story across the United States is a big old bullseye of severe weather. And I'll get to that depending on how much time. When am I getting kicked out of here?
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay, so cool. I'll get to that in a sec. But our rainfall chances aren't all that high. And I'm not going to get into the complicated meteorology. But we have something that's called a cap. Picture you have a bottle of soda. A bottle of soda, you can shake it up, and until you take that cap off, nothing's going to explode out of there. Same thing happens in the atmosphere. So you can have the most unstable environment in the world, but if you have a cap in the atmosphere where it can't rise above a certain point, you're not going to have the storms. That's what we have today. So I think you have storms that flourish north of I-40 where those conditions are a little bit more favorable, but we don't really have too much going on. I think our best chance for rain for the entire weekend is tonight into tomorrow. The big bullseye I'm about to show you, which is the big weather highlighter across the United States, rolls into the North Carolina mountains tonight, I think anywhere between about midnight and 3. It'll die out. These are classic examples of the rain showers that kind of sneak up on us because sometimes if they're moving so fast, they hold together. So it's only the North Carolina mountains and the foothills that have a slight chance for a severe wind gust associated with this, but it looks like it's going to crumble as it gets closer to Charlotte. I think 5 to 9 is the best chance for rain, still an outside chance for a heavier downpour. After that, we start to clear things out and we should have a decent afternoon, but you notice to the east, right actually above where my little box is right here, you're seeing some storms starting to flourish. That, I think, is our best chance for storms. Now, I'm not saying that you won't see that. The only thing that could change is that this kind of exceeds expectations and we see late afternoon into the evening that line extends a little bit further west. So I'm always a chance. So you're saying I have a chance. Heading into your Sunday, I think they're a little bit cloudier. The slightest chance for maybe a shower to pop up, but all in all, I think we're going to be trending in a good direction. All right, so just bear with me. I'm going to go through my graphic system because I want to show you the big severe weather highlighter that we have for the week. But by the way, May 20th is usually when we have our first average first 90-degree day. So we're right on par if we do that today. Okay.
On par.
On par. Okay, well, as we are driving into the weekends, no, I'm just joking. We see this big little bullseye. Where am I in the box? Do I point over here?
Yeah,
right over there.
Perfect.
Okay, I'll utilize myself in the box.
Very good.
It's the areas that have those little lines that represents a significant threat. Do you remember when I was here in the Impact Studio and I was saying, hey, we have a significant threat for hail? Well, what happened? We saw widespread hail reports in the Western Carolinas with up to golf ball size. Whenever you see hash lines on any one of these reports, this is by the Storm Prediction Center, that's where you have to take extra caution. But this is for damaging winds and also the potential for some tornadoes. So I think you could have a tornado outbreak, wind damage that goes on for miles, the potential for what's called a derecho. That is a long-lived wind event and never a good situation. But just because that could last in the Carolinas is the whole reason why we see the yellows and the oranges that are a little bit closer to home. We do have a low chance for any storm that fires up tomorrow. Again, more likely that we stay dry, but if it does pop, it could turn into a severe thunderstorm. So I just wanted to let you know. It's all coming down to storm fuel. Whenever you have a bright white shading right here, that is astronomical. We actually have that today. We are so lucky. If we had a front that was arriving this afternoon, we're talking about a widespread wind event, and the PGA Day 2 is not happening. Or at least it's going to be postponed significantly at one point. Luckily, we don't have that driving force because for severe weather, boxes need to be checked. For severe storms, multiple boxes need to be checked. But for in general, if you have a hot and humid day, sometimes it's just not enough on its own. You need a little bit more like a front to drive it up, but we don't have that luckily. We will have it a little bit later on, but most of the instability is a little bit further south. So this is me kind of backing up what I'm saying, why we're not really seeing as many storms going forward, which is good news for us. So again, looking at it, chance for storms further off towards the north, but things are trending that it's really only Saturday morning that looks to be the wettest. Let's wrap it up with a bow, shall we? Our Guy Roofing 7-day forecast. 90 today, 88 tomorrow, pretty much the same day, both hot and humid, but today is the most humid, today is the hottest feeling day, today's right near 90. If I were to say the best chance for rain and storms this week, I think it's Wednesday. Wednesday, that's where things are lining up a little bit better for us. It's still hot and humid, but we have that cold front that arrives that's going to give us the better potential. Still a chance for thunderstorms on Monday and Tuesday, but if you are a fan of that spring-like weather, you like to be less humid, you enjoy the mid-70s like myself, your pick of the week is going to be Thursday. So that's kind of a nice break from the heat before we'll ramp it back up in the following weekend.
All right, so I'm going to wait till tomorrow afternoon to wash the car.
Yeah. I
Not
think
tonight.
Tonight it'll rain again, but I think you can just do it just fine. It will get breezy tomorrow, so yeah, I think that's better because it's
Sunday.
It's annoying. Yeah, Sunday works too. Yeah, I think any one of those days. I think it's really annoying when you get a bunch of wind gusts and then it just blows stuff onto your car. So yeah, I think Sunday's the best because it's a little less breezy.
Okay, all right. See, I love these personal, little tips.
I'm here for you.
Weather. And things are going to look pretty good for Quail Hollow. So
yeah.
You're welcome. All the players.
We got you.
Rory, Justin, welcome. Scotty. All right, Chris Mulcahy in the Live Impact studio, once again giving us the weekend forecast for you. Speaking of PGA, as we take a look around some of the content we've collected for you covering the PGA Championship. Mention a couple of the stars. We also have our local celebrity. Our Nick Carboni spoke with Charlotte FC midfielder and captain Ashley Westwood at the PGA. He and his son were there. He's a big fan. And let's take a look at that interview now here on Live Impact News on WCNC+.
Quail Hollow Club for the PGA Championship, and look who we found. It's Charlotte FC captain Ashley Westwood. Westy, you're just having a great time out here. I see you at so many sporting events in Charlotte. What's special about being an athlete in this city, but also a fan?
We're very lucky. Obviously, to come to a special place like this is phenomenal. I've been lucky enough to be invited to play here, so me and the manager played here 2 weeks ago, I think, when the stands were up, and it's just a magical place. So we're very fortunate with what we do, and we like to surround ourselves with the fellow sportsmen.
And what's it like to be here with Frankie?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, he loves his golf, so I think I force it on more than he likes, but he can hit it. He can hit it. So he's following the footsteps of the Rorys, the Tommy Fleetwoods, because we like to stay English. So hopefully one day he might be playing here.
Well, you have the unique perspective of watching the tour guys play here, but also having played the course yourself. So what advice would you give these guys maybe going into 16 where Rory, Xander, and Scotty double bogeyed each on Thursday?
Well, we were just watching the 17th. We were sat on the 17th from what looked a great shot. All of a sudden it's in the water. So listen, they're not going to take advice from me, and I wouldn't, because I've hacked my way around here. But now we've watched them on the practice area, and when you watch these guys, my wife was mocking me earlier, saying I'm a fanboy, and when you see these boys hit a ball, it's phenomenal. So yeah, I'm fully fanboy today.
All right, well, give us like your best shot at Quail Hollow Club, the one you just can't forget about, that keeps you coming back.
Okay, so first hole, nerves, drove it, unbelievable. Obviously it's a par 5 for us, but it was reachable in 2, and then I hit I think it was a 6-iron into the green, and I birdied it. So I would say the first hole, coming off the bunkers down to the green, was phenomenal. So yeah, the first hole, but from there it went downhill.
I was going to say no follow-up. I'll just assume that's how it was for the rest of the 17.
I think it was about 104 after that.
Westy, thank you. Good luck Saturday, but enjoy your time.
Thank you. Enjoy.
All right, good stuff. We're going to keep it on the Fun Friday train and talk about summer vacation, at least the planning of it. It is in full swing. And for many Charlotte area families, that means heading to the coast. So if you are among the thousands that plan on making an annual pilgrimage to, say, Virginia Beach, the Williamsburg area, this year is going to be quite special at one of the region's most popular attractions. We're talking about Busch Gardens. And they're celebrating 50 years with a thrilling new addition right now. Joining us for the sneak peek to this morning, Susie Cheeley is the VP of Design and Engineering for Busch Gardens, and then Rob McNicholas, Vice President of Operations for United Parks and Resorts. Thank you, you guys. Happy anniversary.
Hey, thank you. Happy anniversary. And I think we're just going to go ahead and get it started. You hear the bell ringing. We're here at the Big Bad Wolf, the Wolf's Revenge at Busch Gardens Williamsburg on opening day. And we're super excited to be here. I don't know about you, Susie.
Oh, I'm very excited. It's been a long time coming. We started last spring with construction and everything. So everybody's excited that we're finally going to be open and we can ride it now.
Yes, we can.
Yes.
And we're going here over the first hill.
Woo!
Wow! I mean, swinging back and forth through the beautiful Virginia countryside. And for those that were fans of the original Big Bad Wolf coaster, Susie, I think we're going into somewhere a little familiar.
Yes, the Bavarian Village. Wait, it looks like the wolf might have been here.
I think the wolf has gone through here.
I see some
Right
holes
through
in the
truck
roof.
and stable, which I think some people might recognize.
That's right. That's right. Then we get a little break here.
Little break on lift two.
Not much, because we're off and running again pretty quickly.
Absolutely. There's the wolf's howl, and we're going again. Oh, wow. As Susie said, we are so excited to get to welcome everybody out here to ride. And grand opening isn't that far away.
Next weekend. Yes. So come on out next weekend and ride the Big Bad Wolf with us again.
Absolutely. But you know, Susie, if you're a member, you can come and ride with us tonight.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Right.
So we're so
all
excited for everyone to come
All
out.
the members, come on out. I think they already know about it. They're probably already standing in line.
I think there's already a big line for this one. Absolutely. You know, you hear the music of the Bavarian Village, you hear the wolf's howl. You know, it's always great when you ride a ride on opening day knowing it's going to be a classic.
Oh, yes. Yeah. The Wolf's Revenge. Here we go.
I love that you guys were able to talk and ride the roller coaster all at the same time. I could barely walk and talk, Rob and Susie. So what kind of specials can people look forward to today versus next week?
Absolutely. So, you know, today when you come on out, there's a very special thing that we're doing.
It's our 50th anniversary.
It's our 50th anniversary.
Yeah.
And if you're also celebrating a birthday, a 50th birthday this month, you can come on out to the park and join us.
All right, what other requirements are needed for, because it's a family-friendly ride, so what do the young ones need to do or be?
Yeah, absolutely. So the greatest thing about this being a family ride is that the minimum rider height is only 42 inches to ride. So it really is a great ride for everyone, from your first coaster to bringing everybody in the family out, all your friends, and getting to experience it together.
All right, and Susie, I mean, you designed this. How did you achieve that balance between the old and the new?
Yeah, so how do we achieve, you know, when we were doing the balance between the old and the new, right, there was a lot of things that went into it.
Oh, yeah. Well, we definitely revisited all the old story. We have, you know, the wolf is here, the wolf has come. He's devastated the area. We thought we were away from the wolf, but he came back. So now everybody has to deal with it again. But come on out and you'll be able to experience it as well. Have a little beer along the way. I don't know if you saw when we were coming back in, there was a celebration going on, and all the villagers left, but you can come back now.
Well, and it makes me want to go right out to Fest House and get one right now.
Absolutely.
All right, yeah, spot the places to be after your ride, maybe. I don't know if I could do beer and then go on a roller coaster, but 10 a.m. somewhere. Yeah, it is 10 a.m., I suppose. All right, Rob and Susie, thank you so much for giving us that live sneak preview. I felt like we were on the ride with you.
Absolutely. I think the only thing next is for you to come on out here and join us.
Sounds like fun. Sounds like a really great time for the family heading out there. Busch Gardens, Williamsburg, celebrating 50 years. Thanks for joining us here on Live Impact News. Appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Wow. I think they're going to be doing that like throughout the day for other stations.
Could you imagine anchoring?
Anchoring, talking, and then,
and doing
whoa, I'm going on on an incline and
No.
upside. It didn't go upside down, so I guess there's that plus. Okay, let's get back to PGA Championship fun, because our Miles Harris talked to the fella who handles the greens. It is a business in of itself, and it you know, you got to putt on those things, and I would say, got to putt for dough. That's where the money is made. So let's check out this story from our Miles Harris on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus.
And to talk with us more about the impact of this, we have Keith Wood, the director of the grounds and the greens out here in the tournament. First of all, good morning, Keith. But also talk to us, man. I mean, how much work goes into making sure that this tournament looks as perfect as it does like today?
Well, thanks for having me, Miles. But
years and years go into planning to host these major championships. And while we do host championship golf quite frequently here in Charlotte, the PGA Championship is one of the majors on the golfing schedule, and the scale of this tournament is so large that it just takes lots of planning, lots of coordination from many people to pull this thing off.
And I mean, so far it looks absolutely amazing. We got to go ahead and say that for you, though, too. But obviously, there's been a little bit of a challenge with making sure that this looks well. We're talking about that weather, the rain that we saw on the days leading into today. And you guys have a specific system, right? Like a sub-air system that works on the ground. So you're kind of talk to us about how that's been able to really help you guys get into today.
Yeah, it's never good when Brad Panovich says, get ready for soaking rains over a period of days, and that had me kind of worried there, to be honest with you, Miles. But we made it through. The sun's out. I can see my shadow, so hopefully the weather dries up for us. But and speaking to the sub-air, what the sub-air does on the greens, it's a fan that works underneath the greens, and it helps draw moisture out of the surface, and not only helping to draw the moisture out, but draw oxygen in. So when you talk about plants, their roots respire. In order to have a healthy root zone, in order for the plant to be able to take the stress that it endures in a major championship golf tournament, being mown 4 times a day, being rolled constantly, having 156 players trample across it, you need to have a very healthy root zone, and that's what the sub-air does for us. It really helps those roots be able to support the shoots, and that way we can have a good putting greens.
Is there one hole in particular that was maybe needed a little bit more work than the others?
No, all 18 holes have the sub-air system underneath them, including our practice greens, so that way they're consistent from one to another. That's another important thing with major championship golf. You don't want one hole playing a certain way and another hole playing another. So for us, consistency is key, and we use them on all our putting surfaces in unison.
Is there one hole in particular that you like to work on most, so that gives you like the best visual for this tournament, would you say?
Oh, my favorite hole now, if you're asking my favorite hole to watch golf or to play, is the 14th out here. It's a short par 4. It gives plenty of risk-reward options. You can go for the green or you can lay up, and we're going to see that this week. I think the setup officials are going to give the pros the opportunity to go for birdie, and if they're not successful, they'll probably end up with a bogey.
Okay, but good news though, no really after effects when it came to that rain that we saw kind of lingering into the play this week or this weekend.
Well, the course drains really well. I mean, sure, we definitely need some sunlight, and if the wind would blow a little bit, that would help firm things up. It's not going to play as firm as we want, but the surfaces are good, and they're playing the ball down, which means when the ball hits the fairway, they're not able to put their hands on it, and they have to play it where it lies, which is a big feather in our cap, and that's the way we want it.
And we talked about it though too. I mean, having this tournament here in Charlotte just has to have so much meaning for you and your team, being able to get this off and running though too. So needless to say, you're excited.
Oh yeah, we're very excited, and we're a little exhausted, but we're waiting for Sunday to come and see that champion get crowned, and all this hard work is going to be worth it for everybody.
All right, we are at 9:26, coming up on 9:30 this morning, and it looks like the Karen Reed retrial out of Dedham, Massachusetts, now underway on this Friday morning. We're looking at a new witness this morning, Andre Porto, forensic scientist, as we wrap up week 4 in the Karen Reed retrial. Reed accused of hitting her boyfriend, John O'Keefe, who was a Boston police officer, at a house party of fellow Boston police officers, and her defense team saying that it was a conspiracy, that she was framed into being framed for the killing of John O'Keefe. All right, let's go to this here live on Live Impact News on WCNC+.
To DNA analysis, can you explain to the jury how is that analysis performed?
Sure. So there's 4 steps in the analysis process. The first step is extraction, where we apply heat and chemicals to the samples to break open the cells and release that DNA to be available for use. Step 2 is called quantitation, where we take a small sample of that extracted DNA to estimate, and we use chemicals and run it through an instrument to estimate how much DNA we extracted. And then we proceed to step 3, which is called amplification. And that's basically, think of it as a molecular photocopier, where we target specific areas of the DNA to make millions of copies of it. And then we run it through, go to detection, where we run it through an instrument, and we generate the DNA profile as an electronic file on a computer.
Now, is the state lab where you work accredited?
Yes, it is.
And by whom?
We are accredited by an organization called ANAB, which stands for ANSI, National Accreditation Board, and ANSI stands for American National Standards Institute.
I need you to slow down, please.
Sorry.
Please.
Sorry.
Now, Mr. Porto, are there steps taken in your lab during that process that you were just explaining to prevent against contamination?
Yes, there are.
And can you explain what those are?
Sure. So there are various steps. One step to prevent contamination between analysts would be to bleach and wipe down the workstations before use and after. Another way to prevent DNA transfer from analysts to the samples is to wear personal protective equipment, such as lab coats, gloves, masks, hairnets, and beard guards. And a way to prevent transfer from sample to sample would be to frequently change gloves, as well as only have one sample open at a time.
Now, with your work at the lab, is there a review process that your work undergoes?
Yes, there is.
And can you describe that process to the jury?
Sure. So once I complete my work, the file undergoes two types of reviews. The first is a technical review, where another qualified analyst will take the file and they'll do their own independent assessment and make sure that they come up with the conclusions and that they agree with the conclusions that I reached. And they'll also make sure that all the protocols were followed and every decision is scientifically sound. Once that review is completed, it undergoes an administrative review, where another qualified analyst will then look through the file and they look for clerical errors, such as typos or missing page numbers or missing case numbers. Once those two reviews are completed, the results can then be reported out.
Now, as a part of that accreditation process that you were speaking about a few moments ago, do you undergo anything called proficiency testing?
Yes, I do.
And can you explain to the jury what that proficiency testing process consists of?
Yeah, so a proficiency test is a test that's administered twice a year by an external vendor, and the results of this test are not known to the analyst at the time. And we basically treat it like it's a real case, where it undergoes the analysis process as if it were a real case. And this test is used to show that the analyst is demonstrates ongoing competency in the DNA analysis process. And successful completion of the test is required to maintain qualification as an analyst.
And what areas do you specifically undergo proficiency testing in?
DNA analysis.
And have you successfully completed each of those proficiency tests that you've taken?
Yes.
Now, Mr. Porto, could you explain to the jury what exactly is DNA?
Yeah, so DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid, and it's basically the building block that makes us who we are. We each have two copies of our DNA, one that we inherit from mom and one that we inherit from dad. And this combination makes sure that, barring with the exception of identical twins, we all have different DNA.
And is DNA the same in every cell of a person's body?
Yes. So what that means is, if I were to take a blood sample and a saliva sample from the same person, the same DNA profile will be generated.
Now, you spoke a bit earlier about the different steps included in the DNA testing. If you could, just a little bit slower, go through each of those 4 steps again for the jury.
Sure. So like I said, it's a 4-step process. So extraction, quantitation, amplification, and detection. So extraction, we use chemicals and heat to burst open the cells to make that DNA available for use. Quantitation, step 2, we take a small sample of that extracted DNA. We use a different set of chemicals and an instrument to estimate how much DNA is available for use. Amplification is the 3rd step, which I mentioned is the basically molecular photocopier, where it makes millions of copies of specific areas of the DNA. And then the 4th and last step is detection, where we run those amplified copies through an instrument, and we generate the DNA profile as an electronic file on the computer.
Now, Mr. Porto, what is STR?
So STR stands for short tandem repeats, and they're the locations that we're making the millions of copies of.
Now, in your work at the lab, do you have something that's referred to as a known item?
Yes.
And can you explain to the jury what a known item is?
Sure. So a known item is an item that's taken directly from a person to be used as a reference sample, so we know what the source of that profile is.
And conversely, what is a questioned item?
A questioned item is an item that's taken, let's say, from a crime scene, where we don't know what the source is.
Now, do you also have terminology within your lab as far as a parent versus a child item?
Yes, we do.
And can you explain how those labels are and how they reference to what you do in your work?
Sure. So a parent item is, for example, the original item, and the child is a sample of that item. So, for example, this box of tissues would be the parent item, and if you were to swab the outside, the swab would be the child item. So the box of tissues would receive, let's say, an item of 1-1. The swabbing of the outside would receive an item of 1-1.1.
Now, what are positive and negative controls?
Yeah, so a positive control is a control that has it's a known sample with a known DNA profile that we use in every step of the DNA analysis process to make sure that each step and instrument worked as expected and properly. And then a negative control is a sample that has no DNA in it. It only receives the chemicals that we use, and that's to ensure that the chemicals that we're using don't have any DNA inherent to them.
Now, when you as an analyst or a forensic scientist too are assigned work within the DNA unit, where do you retrieve that evidence from?
Yeah, so I retrieve it from a locked cold room that's only accessible via keycard.
Now, why are items kept in cold storage?
Yeah, the cold storage helps preserve the DNA for long-term storage.
And as far as the heat versus the cold, why is it that it's specifically kept, or why does the coldness of the storage room help preserve the item?
The cold can help prevent, let's say, growth of bacteria and mold that can degrade DNA.
And what does heat do, conversely, in reference to an item of forensic value?
Heat can help degrade DNA, and also promotes bacterial and mold growth that can further degrade that DNA.
Now, when you receive an item from the cold storage, how is that item typically packaged when you retrieve it from there?
Sure. So the item comes in these plastic, clear, transparent plastic sealed containers that has a label with a case number on it. And inside of that, each sample is within like a small plastic tube that has a label with a case number and item number.
Now, at some point, were you assigned to perform some work on a lab case number 22-02184 pertaining to this defendant, Karen Reed?
Yes, I did.
And what type of work in general terms were you assigned to do in this case?
I was assigned to do the DNA analysis process.
And that was on several items, is that correct?
Correct.
And could you explain to the jury the sort of the process that you used to analyze evidence in this case?
Sure. So the case underwent the 4 steps that I explained before. So extraction, quantitation, amplification, and detection.
And there was a known standard that was done in this case, specifically in item number 8-1.1.1, is that correct?
Correct.
And did another analyst test and report the results from the known blood standard from that item 8-1.1.1?
Correct.
And how is that done?
Yeah, so that undergoes the same process that I explained. It'll go through the 4 steps: extraction, quantitation, amplification, detection, and then the analyst that did the interpretation and reported that out, the known standard out, they went through the profile to make sure that it's from one person or single source. And once that went through the review process that I explained, so technical and administrative review, and once that was all completed, the standard was available to be used for comparison.
And to whom was that known standard identified as belonging to?
John O'Keefe.
Now, you used the word in there as far as a single source. Can you explain to the jury what your understanding of that term is based on your training and experience?
Sure. So a single source is just a DNA profile that has one contributor to it. So only one person contributed DNA to that profile.
Now, what exactly is a DNA profile?
Yeah, so a DNA profile is basically the combination of all of the locations that we amplified during the 3rd step of the process. And it's basically, you can think of it as like a chart, like an EKG, where it has peaks and valleys, and each peak has a specific number, and the DNA profile is just a combination of all those numbers put together.
Now, can you explain to the jury in general terms, to start with, the process of comparison between a known standard and a questioned or unknown standard?
Sure. So first, I did the analysis on the question items. I did the 4 steps. I analyzed the profiles that were generated. I then interpreted, make sure that I could determine the number of contributors. And once that was completed, I then used the standard that was available and compared them to all the profiles that were suitable for comparison.
Now, sir, starting with item 3-1.1, What was that a sample from?
That was a sample from taillight passenger.
And from a specific vehicle, is that correct?
Correct.
And what, if any, information were you given as to that vehicle that the swab from the taillight was from?
Do you mean like the license plate?
Yes.
Could I refer to my notes?
Yes.
Thank you.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, this is a little detail as far as the testimony
I
goes.
don't have a problem. Does the defense object?
I do not object,
Okay,
Your Honor.
thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
So the license plate was 3G6684. Right, I'm sorry, 3GC684.
Now, with reference to the swab from the taillight, were you able to generate a DNA profile from that item?
I was.
And from your comparative analysis from that question item to that of the known standard of John O'Keefe, what did you conclude?
So the sample, the DNA profile was interpreted as a mixture of 3 contributors, including male DNA. And the DNA profile from this item is at least, so sorry. I'll just restart. So the DNA profile was interpreted as a mixture of 3 contributors, including male DNA. And the DNA profile from this item is at least 510 non-alien times more likely if it originated from John O'Keefe and 2 unknown individuals than if it originated from 3 unknown, unrelated individuals. This provides support for an inclusion.
Now, sir, what does that mean?
So an inclusion is basically when I look at the question DNA profile that was generated, and I compare it to the known DNA profile. And if the characteristics of the known profile are consistent with the characteristics observed in the question DNA profile, that's an inclusion.
Now, as far as that number, 510 non-alien, how many zeros in that number?
So a non-alien is a 1 followed by 30 zeros.
Now, that profile, in addition to Mr. O'Keefe's profile, also had 2 unknown contributors, correct?
Correct.
Now, was that item also submitted to an outside vendor named Bodhi Technologies for further analysis?
Correct.
And with reference to your comparative analysis from the profile from this item to Mr. O'Keefe profile, if you could again just expound upon what does inclusion mean?
Yes, so an inclusion, I compared the known standard that I had available for use from John O'Keefe to the DNA profile generated from the taillight. And the DNA profile was, if that was consistent with the DNA profile that I observed in the questioned item, and that's what an inclusion means.
Now, regarding item 3-6, what is the description of that item?
Yeah, so 3-6 is a root end of hair from exterior passenger side rear panel.
And is that the same vehicle as far as the taillight sample?
Correct.
Now, with respect to hair in general, there's a root end and a shaft end, correct?
Correct.
And what limitations does your lab have with regard to DNA testing of hair?
So when we test hair, we're actually, the root end of the hair, we're looking at any potential skin cells that might be attached to the root end. So that's where the DNA that we're looking for is coming from. And if there's not too many, yeah.
Now, are you familiar with a term based on your training experience known as autosomal DNA?
Yes.
And can you describe for the jury what your understanding of that term is?
Yeah, so autosomal DNA is DNA that's located in the nucleus of the cell, and that's the DNA that we inherit from both mom and dad.
Now, are you also familiar, based on your training experience, with a term known as mitochondrial DNA?
Yes.
And can you please explain to the jury what your understanding of the term mitochondrial DNA is?
Yeah, so mitochondrial DNA is DNA that's found in the mitochondria of a cell, and we inherit that from the mother.
It may be somewhat evident, but could you please explain to the jury sort of the difference between autosomal DNA on the one hand and mitochondrial DNA on the other?
Yeah, so like I said, the autosomal DNA is the one that we have 2 copies of, where we inherit one from mom and one from dad. And then the mitochondrial DNA is a circular DNA that we just inherit from mom.
Now, is the Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab equipped to perform mitochondrial DNA testing?
No, we're not.
Now, was the DNA extract from the hair also sent to that external vendor, Bodhi Technologies, in Lorton, Virginia?
I'm not sure if the extract was sent, but I know that the shaft of the hair was sent to Bodhi.
Now, what testing did you perform on the hair?
I did the regular DNA analysis process on the root end of the hair.
And that was done prior to it being shipped to that external vendor, is that correct?
Correct.
And what conclusions were you able to draw from the testing that you did on the hair?
Yeah, so there was no human DNA detected, and STR analysis was not performed.
Now, what does that mean, sir?
Yeah, so it means that I didn't detect any human DNA. So there might be DNA on there, but it was below what our instrumentation could detect.
Now, turning your attention to item 3-2.1.1, what is the description related to that item, sir?
It's a sample from the exterior of broken drinking glass.
And is there any further indication as far as the broken drinking glass, as far as where it was recovered?
Oh, yeah, 34 Fairview Road.
And were you able to generate a DNA profile from this item, the drinking glass?
Yes, I was.
And from your comparative analysis from this question item to that of the known standard of John O'Keefe, what did you conclude?
Yeah, so the DNA profile was interpreted as a mixture of 3 contributors, including male DNA. The DNA profile from this item is at least 530 non-million times more likely if it originated from John O'Keefe and 2 unknown individuals than if it originated from 3 unknown, unrelated individuals. This supports an inclusion.
This is the last time I'll ask you this, but just if you could reiterate to the jury, what does an inclusion mean?
Yep, so an inclusion is when I compared the known standard to the question item, and if the profile in the known standard is consistent with the profile in the question profile, that's an inclusion.
And that number again, as far as 530 non-alien, how many zeros again in that number?
That's a 1 followed by 30 zeros.
Now, sir, if I could turn your attention to another item, 7-1.2.1, what is the description related to that item?
Sample from stain A on upper right leg of jeans.
And is there any further indication as to whom those genes belong to?
John O'Keefe.
Now, were you also able to generate a DNA profile from this item, the stain A on the upper right leg of Mr. O'Keefe's jeans?
Yes, I was.
And from your comparative analysis from the question item to that of the known standard of John O'Keefe, what did you conclude with reference to that item?
The DNA profile was interpreted as a mixture of 3 contributors, including male DNA. Contributor 1 is suitable for comparison, and due to limited information, contributors 2 and 3 are not suitable for comparison. The DNA profile from this item is at least 570 non-million times more likely if it originated from John O'Keefe and 2 unknown individuals than if it originated from 3 unknown, unrelated individuals. This provides support for an inclusion.
Thank you, sir. Now, turning your attention to item 7-1.3.1, what is the description related to that item?
Sample from stain B on upper right leg of jeans.
And same genes as the previous item?
Yes.
Now, were you able to generate a DNA profile from this item, stain B, on the upper right leg of the genes of Mr. O'Keefe?
Yes, I was.
And from your comparative analysis from this questioned item to that of the known standard of John O'Keefe, what did you conclude?
Yep, so the DNA profile was interpreted as a mixture of 3 contributors, including male DNA. The DNA profile from this item is at least 660 non-alien times more likely if it originated from John O'Keefe and 2 unknown individuals than if it originated from 3 unknown, unrelated individuals. This provides support for an inclusion.
Now, sir, with reference to item 7-1.4.1, and again, these items with the dash and the point, is that what you were referring to earlier as the parent-child relationship between items?
Yes.
And what is the description for 7-1.4.1?
Sample from stain C on upper right leg of jeans.
Now, were you able to generate a DNA profile from this item from stain C on the upper right leg of Mr. O'Keefe's jeans?
Yes, I was.
And from your comparative analysis of this question item, stain C, to that of the known standard of John O'Keefe, what did you conclude?
The DNA profile is a mixture of at least 2 contributors, including male DNA. Contributor 1 is suitable for comparison. Due to limited information, contributor 2 is not suitable for comparison. The DNA profile was interpreted as a mixture of 2 contributors. The DNA profile from this item is at least 830 non-alien times more likely if it originated from John O'Keefe and an unknown individual than if it originated from 2 unknown, unrelated individuals. This provides support for an inclusion.
Now, sir, with reference to item 7-1.5.1, what was the description of that?
Sample from stain D on upper right leg of jeans.
Now, were you able to generate a DNA profile from this item from stain D on the upper right leg of Mr. O'Keefe's jeans?
Yes, I was.
And from your comparative analysis from this item to the known standard of John O'Keefe, what did you conclude?
The DNA profile was interpreted as a mixture of 3 contributors, including male DNA. The DNA profile from this item is at least 670 non-million times more likely if it originated from John O'Keefe and 2 unknown individuals than if it originated from 3 unknown, unrelated individuals. This provides support for an inclusion.
Now, sir, did you also do some testing on an item 7-1.6.1?
Yes, I did.
And what was the description associated with that item?
Sample from stain E on upper right leg of jeans.
And were you able to generate a DNA profile from that item, stain E, on the upper right leg of Mr. O'Keefe's jeans?
Yes, I was.
And from your comparative analysis from that question item to the known standard of John O'Keefe, what did you conclude?
The DNA profile was interpreted as a mixture of 2 contributors, including male DNA. Contributor 1 is suitable for comparison. Due to limited information, contributor 2 is not suitable for comparison. The DNA profile from this item is at least 1.0 decillion times more likely if it originated from John O'Keefe and an unknown individual than if it originated from 2 unknown, unrelated individuals. This provides a support for an inclusion.
I used a different number there as far as a decillion. How many zeros is a decillion?
Yeah, a decillion is a 1 followed by 33 zeros.
Now, with each of those items that you just testified about as far as the genes, the question items from the stains on Mr. O'Keefe's jeans, those were each located on the right leg, correct?
Correct.
Now, did you also perform some analysis on item 7-1.7.1?
I did.
And what is the description associated with that item number?
Sample from unstained areas of the exterior of jeans.
Now, were you able to generate a DNA profile from that item, from the unstained areas of the exterior of Mr. O'Keefe's jeans?
I was.
And from your comparative analysis from this questioned item to the known standard of John O'Keefe, what did you conclude?
The DNA profile was interpreted as a mixture of 4 contributors, including male DNA. The DNA profile from this item is at least 53 septillion times more likely if it originated from John O'Keefe and 3 unknown individuals than if it originated from 4 unknown, unrelated individuals. This provides support for an inclusion.
And again, sir, with that number, as far as 53 septillion times more likely, how many zeros in a septillion?
A septillion is a 1 followed by 24 zeros.
Now, sir, if I could turn your attention to what's listed as number 12 in your report, but item 7-18.4.1. Did you do some testing on that item as well?
Yes.
And what was the description associated with that?
Sample from stain C on top front of Gray's long sleeve shirt.
And the gray long sleeve shirt, is that attributed as belonging to a specific person?
Yes, John O'Keefe.
And were you able to generate a DNA profile from that item, specifically sample from stain C on the top front of the gray long sleeve shirt of Mr. O'Keefe?
I was.
And from your comparative analysis from that questioned item from the shirt to the known standard of John O'Keefe, what did you conclude?
So the male DNA profile was interpreted as originated from a single contributor. The DNA profile from this item is at least 58 octillion times more likely if it originated from John O'Keefe than if it originated from an unknown, unrelated individual. This provides support for an inclusion.
And again, sir, that number, as far as 58 octillion times more likely, how many zeros in an octillion?
So an octillion is a 1 followed by 27 zeros.
Now, sir, if I could take you down to listed as 15 in your report, but did you do some testing on item 7-18.14.1?
I did.
And what was the description associated with that item?
So sample from stain L on back bottom right of gray long sleeve shirt.
And were you able to generate a DNA profile from that item?
I was.
And from your comparative analysis with reference to that item, the sample from stain L on the back bottom right of the gray long sleeve shirt, in comparison to the DNA profile from the known standard of John O'Keefe, what did you conclude?
So the DNA profile was interpreted as a mixture of 2 contributors, including male DNA. The DNA profile from this item is at least 1.0 decillion times more likely if it originated from John O'Keefe and an unknown individual than if it originated from 2 unknown, unrelated individuals. This provides support for an inclusion.
Now, sir, did you also perform some analysis on an item numbered 7-18.17.1?
I did.
And what was the description associated with that item, sir?
Sample from unstained areas of exterior of gray long sleeve shirt.
And similarly, were you able to generate a DNA profile from that item, the sample from the unstained areas of the exterior of the gray long sleeve shirt of Mr. O'Keefe?
I was.
And from your comparative analysis from that question item to that of the known standard of John O'Keefe, what did you conclude?
The DNA profile was interpreted as a mixture of two contributors, including male DNA. Contributor 1 is suitable for comparison. Due to limited information, contributor 2 is not suitable for comparison. The DNA profile from this item is at least 960 non-alien times more likely if it originated from John O'Keefe and an unknown individual than if it originated from two unknown, unrelated individuals. This provides support for an inclusion.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to group a couple, 4 separate items from your report, starting with what's listed in your report as number 9 is item 7-3.1, correct?
Correct.
And what is the description associated with that item, sir?
Sample from stain D on right instep of sneaker.
And 11 from your report, you also did some analysis on item 7-18.3.1, is that correct?
Correct.
And what was the description associated with that?
Sample from stain B on top front of gray long sleeve shirt.
And item 7-18.7.1, do you see that as well?
Yes.
And what was the description associated with that item?
Sample from stain F on top front of gray long sleeve shirt.
And lastly, in this group, item 7-18.8.1, what was the description associated with that?
Sample from stain G on back left sleeve of gray long sleeve shirt.
And with respect to each of those last 4 samples from those items, were you able to generate a DNA profile with respect to each of those 4?
Profiles were generated from them.
And what did you conclude based on the generation of those profiles with those 4 items?
Yeah, so the profiles that were generated were not suitable for comparison.
And if you could explain briefly to the jury, when you say not suitable for comparison, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, so for 7-3.1, it was a mixture of at least 5 contributors. And at the DNA unit, we validated, basically we tested and make sure that our protocols were we can only interpret mixtures of up to 4 contributors. So I determined that there were 5 contributors, so that makes it too complex for us to do comparisons to it. So it's not suitable for comparison for that reason. And the other 3 items, due to the quality of the profile, they were not suitable for comparison. And basically what that means is that there were such low amounts of DNA that was in the sample that there was a lack of information from the profiles themselves, so they weren't really suitable for comparisons.
And just to be clear, the item that you're referring to with the 5 possible contributors, that's a shoot, correct?
Correct.
Now, if I could turn your attention in your report to what you have listed as number 10, there are a number of different items listed there, correct?
Correct.
And starting with item 7-17.2.1, what is the description associated with that?
Sample from stain A on top front left of orange t-shirt.
And 7-17.3, what is the description associated with that?
Sample from stain B on top of front left of orange t-shirt.
And items.
Hi, everyone. Jane Monreal here with you as we come up on 10 o'clock on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. We are looking and listening to live a new witness on the stand for the Karen Reed retrial out of Massachusetts. And the right-hand side of your screen is a live picture at Charlotte Douglas Airport where we are awaiting a live press conference on an announcement regarding a new airline at CLT. So as soon as that starts, we'll bring that to you here live on Live Impact News as we take you back out to Massachusetts.
Attention to item 7-18.2.1. What is the description associated with that?
Sample from stain A on right sleeve of gray long sleeve shirt.
And item 7-18.5.1. What is the description associated with that?
Sample from stain D on center front of gray long sleeve shirt.
And item 7-18.6.1, what is the description associated with that?
Sample from stain E on center front of gray long sleeve shirt.
And item 7-18.9.1, did you generate a profile from that item as well?
Yes.
And what is the description associated with that?
Sample from stain H1 on back left of gray long sleeve shirt.
And item 7-18.10.1, what is the description associated with that?
Sample from stain H2 on back left of gray long sleeve shirt.
And item 7-18.11.1, what is the description associated with that?
Sample from stain I on back right shoulder of gray long sleeve shirt.
And item 7-18.12.1, what is the description associated with that?
Sample from stain J on back bottom right of gray long sleeve shirt.
And lastly, with this group search, item 7-18.13.1, what is the description associated with that?
Sample from stain K on back bottom right of gray long sleeve shirt.
And so each of those items beginning with 7-18 were associated with various stains taken from various areas on the gray long sleeve shirt of Mr. O'Keefe, correct?
Correct.
And with respect to each of those areas of the orange t-shirt and the gray long sleeve shirt, were you able to generate a DNA profile from those items?
I was.
And from your comparative analysis of each of the DNA profiles from those items to the known standard of John O'Keefe, what did you conclude?
So the male DNA profile was interpreted as originating from a single contributor. The DNA profile from these items is at least 490 octillion times more likely if it originated from John O'Keefe than if it originated from an unknown, unrelated individual. This provides support for an inclusion.
Now again, if you could just remind the jury, when you say single source contributor, what does that mean?
Yeah, so a single source profile is a profile that has one contributor to it. So like one person contributed DNA to that profile.
And with respect to the number as far as 490 octillion times more likely, how many zeros are in that number?
So an octillion is a 1 followed by 27 zeros.
Now lastly, sir, did you perform any analysis with reference to items numbered 8-2 and 8-3?
I did.
And what were the descriptions respectively for items 8-2 and 8-3?
So item 8-2 was right hand fingernail clippings from John O'Keefe, and item 8-3 were left hand fingernail clippings from John O'Keefe.
So fingernail clippings from both the right and left hand of Mr. O'Keefe.
Correct.
And were you able to generate a DNA profile from those item numbers, the right and left hand fingernail clippings of Mr. O'Keefe?
I was.
And based on, from your comparative analysis of the DNA profile from the right and left hand fingernail clippings, both of Mr. O'Keefe,
You have been watching the Karen Reed retrial with forensic scientists on the stand here, closing out week 4 out of Massachusetts. And we're also taking a look at Charlotte Douglas Airport, a live picture there showing that we are awaiting an announcement. I do note it's in regards to a new airline that will be coming to the Queen City. So as soon as we see that happen, we're going to play that press conference for you in its entirety. In the meantime, want to get to a story here where we're diving into the investigation now that really hits close to home for many parents. Our Nate Morabito has uncovered some serious security gaps in schools, school-issued technology, putting children at risk from inappropriate images to violent video games, students in the Iredell-Statesville school system accessing content during school hours that really would shock a lot of parents, Nate. And so he's here to discuss what is happening here live in the Live Impact studio, Nate. And want to start off really with the question of what tipped you off that there might be security issues with these school-issued iPads and technology?
I mean, it's a great question. So as you all remember, I spent a lot of time in Iredell County last year covering coal ash concerns. Mm-hmm. And I met a lot of people and I talked to a lot of people that were concerned about that issue. And because of that, they have kind of known that if there's an issue there, they can reach out to me. And so someone alerted a parent up there that they should reach out to me. And this father had, throughout the school year, multiple issues with his son's tablet use. And you know how it works in school nowadays. The parents and the students get these forms before the school year starts where they promise to follow the rules. Mm-hmm. You know, rules get broken a lot. And we're talking about kids, not adults here, who are using these tablets. And throughout the school year, this father started noticing some things. Number one, that his son was missing assignments and didn't understand it. And come to find out, he was playing games during the school day to start out with. And what's interesting about this child is he has accommodations for a disability that require, number one, his iPad stay in his backpack until a teacher tells him to pull it out, but also that a teacher continuously monitors to make sure when he does have his iPad, he's on task. And so it started out with these video games, which kind of seems a little bit harmless, except that he was starting to miss assignments, right? We're going to school to learn. We have recess to play. Sometimes they have, their own free choice time, but most of the day the tablet's there as a learning tool. So it escalates. The dad says this is becoming an issue. He takes control of the iPad settings, starts blocking websites, and then the son starts emailing his friends all day during the school day, right? So this is another thing that's happening. Eventually, he thinks his son has learned his lesson, kind of gives control back to the boy in the school, and then he emails me. This is kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back. He emails me, and there's dozens of pictures of women, and a handful of them leave nothing to the imagination.
Oh, wow.
And this is like a sixth grader, right? So you could say, a sixth grade boy, but some of them are clearly, objectively inappropriate, especially on an iPad that's using the school's Wi-Fi and that's issued by the school. And the dad just said, I've had enough. I can't have him dealing with this anymore. And eventually he enrolled him in homeschool just because his son has this essentially a tablet addiction. And then we heard from another parent.
Okay.
So I wanted you to hear from both of them right now, just so you can kind of meet them first and foremost before we continue our conversation.
All right, here we go.
No lie, in the moment, I called my mom, because if your mom's here, that's what you do. Mom, what do I do to fix this? Mom doesn't know how to fix this. And then I emailed the superintendent, the principal, and everyone on the board. At this point saying I am done with the iPad, because we just had a meeting 2 weeks prior where I was trying to say we have an iPad issue and they're saying we don't. And at this point I said we're done with the iPad.
The fact that he can access and download Call of Duty on a school iPad with the school internet, and that it's a shooting game during school hours, and he was in first grade at the time, so if a first grader can do that, what can our older, more advanced children do on these things?
So he was able to play Call of Duty at school on a
very
school-issued
violent
tablet.
Yeah.
Right. And so, part of what we do, and Jane, you know this, and Carlene, you know this, I mean, I'm very meticulous in my reporting. We're not going to just take one incident and say, oh, this is a problem, right?
Right.
We're essentially building a case that there are some real issues here. And through our reporting, we also found, despite some filtering changes, there was an inappropriate book another student was able to access that was not age appropriate. I mean, so there's all of these different families that are dealing with it, and the biggest concern to these parents is that they feel dismissed. And this is something I find a lot in my reporting. People who've been essentially screaming, help me, we have a problem. And for whatever reason, when they ask for help, they feel like they're not getting taken seriously, and their concerns are diminished and ultimately dismissed.
So, I mean, obviously with very graphic pictures of women and violent pictures as well, and being told that this is not a problem over and over again with separate families, where's the disconnect? Is there?
I mean, so look, the dad, let's start with him. He says 100% this is his son's fault, right? He is to blame. He's responsible for his actions. But the safety net is the district, is the school, is the accommodations that he has in a form that they've all agreed to help protect this kid and make sure he's getting the education he needs. And so if you look at the technology use form that Iredell Statesville School District uses, it puts the blame solely on the kid. Oh. The kid is responsible. We're not going to be held responsible for anything that these children access. When we pushed the school district about this, though, they say, yeah, I mean, it really is up to everyone. It takes a village, and we get that,
sure.
Right?
Right.
I think a lot of times what I find is that parents try in good faith to follow the proper steps to get help. And, I think Drake Smith, the dad, told me that, one teacher said, well, he's not the only one that does this. Well, okay, alarm, if multiple kids are doing this, what can we do to handle it? And then you think about the teachers. I mean, A teacher, their responsibility is enormous, and they have so many kids. And the truth is, in education, every kid is guaranteed an individual education that meets their needs. And so you have one teacher managing all these children, trying to educate them. How much support do they have? Ultimately, the institution, the system, is the school and the school district. That is the safety net.
Yeah, exactly. And why not put proactively those controls before issuing said technology?
Well, and ISS says we have strict filtering. In fact, we have even more tough filtering than the state has. So yes, they've improved their filtering, but clearly it's not doing the trick.
Right.
And so what we want to do is ultimately minimize this so that there's less and less risk for children to access this kind of material.
And yeah, go ahead.
I'm just going to say I can't think of any parent that's going to be at home saying, I'm okay with my kid doing that during the school day.
Yeah.
Again, though, the child is responsible, the parent's responsible, the teacher's responsible, the school's responsible, the district's responsible. I mean, there's a lot of people here that are responsible, but our children should not have access to this. I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, too, it takes a village and to stay on top of those things. And then as technology improves and kids are very savvy, they can find those back doors and cracks through any kind of wormhole and try to...
For sure, but these kids weren't doing that even. So these kids were not bypassing filters. They were just getting it. And then you have the kids that are smarter that can bypass it.
Right.
The mom, Amber Ford, who you heard from, told me, first of all, her older kids are in middle school, they email all day. And also, one of their teachers showed them how they can bypass a filter for YouTube to get additional content that will help them with the project. But the truth is those videos are restricted for a reason. So, I mean, everyone, I like to think everyone, give them the benefit of the doubt, we're doing the best that we can in the situation. But once presented with facts that this is an issue, you would hope before next school year, they took a hard look at this and try to make the appropriate changes.
All right, so then for folks watching your story tonight at 11, I believe.
That's right, yep.
What can parents, do? What should they look for?
Well, number one, I want to remind parents that your school board members, they are your advocate, okay? So you elected them. You may not know who represents your district. There are at-large school board members as well. Find out. And whenever you have a concern, if you feel like the school or the district, they're not being responsive enough, reach out to your school board member. And also, you just got to check in on your kids' tablet use. I mean, there are ways to see what your kids are searching up. You can look at the history, that kind of thing, and just make sure you have open communication with the teacher, too. I think that's so critical. This is a long year, a school year, every year. You need to make sure you have open communication with your teacher and just say, hey, is my child, are they showing any signs of using the iPad too much? Both of these parents think they're on the iPad way too much in school, but this is the world we live in now of technology. And so we have to find a way to use it to the best of our ability, but also protect our kids in the process. A balancing act, and again, I think people are acting in good faith, but clearly there are some safety gaps here that should get a fresh look, especially over the summer.
All right. Again, Nate Morabito in the Live Impact studio with his story that's going to air tonight on WCNC Charlotte at 11 and be here on WCNC Plus as well as the app. A very important story for parents and families alike. Thanks for the insight.
Thank you all for having me.
Absolutely. All right. So as promised, here just after 10 o'clock, we have an important announcement to bring you at CLT Charlotte Douglas, a foreign airline coming to the Queen City, and it's going to fly right out of Charlotte. What it means, what it says, we have the press conference that is underway, but we want to start at the top. So this just moments ago, we're going to start this at the top here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus.
Good morning and welcome to Charlotte Douglas International Airport. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Ted Kaplan. I am the airport's Chief Business and Innovation Officer. It's always a great day when we can share plans for the arrival of a new airline and a new route in Charlotte. Today we are pleased to announce that Etihad Airways, the national airline of the United Arab Emirates, will begin nonstop service from Charlotte to Abu Dhabi in May 2026. Etihad will become Charlotte's fourth international carrier. Abu Dhabi is a vibrant hub for business, cultural, and tourism in the United Arab Emirates and will expand Charlotte's global reach and connectivity to the Middle East and beyond. I am now pleased to introduce Mr. Adria Rabasa, Director of Network and Scheduling at Etihad Airways, who will share more information about this exciting new service in Charlotte. Thank you.
Thank you, Ted. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for being here. We're just very excited to be here today to be able to announce this new route from Abu Dhabi to Charlotte, North Carolina. Charlotte is our 6th destination into the U.S. We're serving right now destinations like New York, Chicago, Washington, Boston, and we're also starting services into Atlanta just in July this year. I think for us, Charlotte is a great destination, strategic destination for us to be adding today. It is a destination that it has a very fast growing economy, which is very much linked to the growth that Abu Dhabi is having at the same time. The great thing that this service will be able to provide is that we'll be able to provide into the people from Charlotte and from North Carolina is the connections into Abu Dhabi, but also these connections beyond Abu Dhabi. So passengers will be able to connect in Abu Dhabi seamlessly because we have these pre-customs check in Abu Dhabi. So customers flying back into the UAE, into the US, can do their customs check in Abu Dhabi and then just land here into Charlotte as a domestic passenger. We're just very excited today as well because we have just announced cooperation with Boeing. We're going to be getting 28 new wide-body aircraft. So one of these wide-bodies will actually be flying into Charlotte, 787 Dreamliner. The route will actually be the longest route from Charlotte Airport and will be the first one into the Middle East. So we're just very, very happy to be able to provide this service. So just to close it off, thank you very much, Ted. I'll just give you back the mic. Thank you as well to the city of Charlotte and to the state of North Carolina for this.
Thank you. Thank you, Adria. The growth of our community and airport has been substantial in recent years. Charlotte Douglas International Airport is one of the state of North Carolina's most significant economic contributors, with an annual economic impact of over $40 billion in the Carolinas. Charlotte has recently become the 6th busiest airport in the world in terms of operations. And in 2024, we welcomed a record 58.8 million passengers, representing a 10% increase over 2023, and of that, a 13% increase in international passenger traffic. I want to thank Adria Rabasa and Etihad Airways.
So last night he used him. Honestly, nothing better than when a guy breaks.
All right, we will get back to that press conference here as we are collecting our video feeds here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. It's what happens here from the Live Impact studio. So that's the raw, unfiltered way, and
that's as real as it gets.
That's how we like it, right, Carlene?
Sometimes an ad rolls on our YouTube stream.
Okay, but really the good news here is that Charlotte Douglas will be the latest U.S. destination for Etihad Airlines. I can speak to this because I flew Etihad back in 2016.
Where did you go?
I ended up in Thailand.
Okay.
But I was living in the Midwest at the time, had to go to New York to collect, go there, then go to Abu Dhabi, and then to Bangkok. But that was, I was about 27 hours. I mean, it's still going to take a long time to get to Asia from the East Coast of the States or even the United States. But that's really nice. It's really convenient. If you want access to Europe and the Mideast and in parts of Asia and wow, that's really huge to have that connection from Charlotte. So I, for one, am excited about that.
Yeah.
All right, let's go back to Andrea.
We hope there's not an ad roll. We apologize if there is, but we'll take it back out here if it happens.
Sounds good. I think he was taking questions from the press.
Yes.
Do you have code shares?
Yeah, we have interline agreement with them. So there's some collaborations as well on the frequent flyer. But we have to look at what is exactly possible for Charlotte, for the new service in Charlotte.
Deal with Delta in Atlanta so that you can connect their passengers?
No, we don't have any partnership with Delta right now.
And just to clarify, this is a direct flight from Charlotte to
Abu Dhabi in that case. What is the approximate length of the flight heading over, and there's an extra hour coming back?
Yeah, there's about 15 hours flight. So I said that'll be the longest flight, sir, from Charlotte Airport. And then, of course, being able to connect farther than just Abu Dhabi.
And a quick follow-up, if I may, what is the approximate price point for this flight?
Yes, so flights are right now available for sale already from 4th of May 2026. We're going to be flying 4 times a week. And the prices, we're going to be adjusting the price. We just went on sale today, but I think you can expect something from about 1,500 return tickets, so somewhere around there for economy class.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes. The highest depends on how the demand is, and depends where you go to. Look, I think at the end of the day, the good thing about this service is that this is not just the opportunity to fly into Abu Dhabi, but it also opens up the opportunity to fly beyond, right? So you can fly to the likes of Africa, the Indian subcontinent, or even go up to Thailand, Bangkok, etc. So this is what the route kind of provides. So the fares will also be adjusting depending on where the final passenger ends up going.
This is our first flight to the Middle East from Charlotte. What kind of amenities can travelers find on your airline?
Yeah. So Etihad Airways is a well-renowned airline for its service. So it's a high service, high standard, high comfort airline. So flying whichever cabin that you will be flying, be it economy class, be it business class, or from other destinations in the US where we also serve first class or even the residents, we kind of have this very comfortable service across the board. Our cabin crew is also very helpful, and then also in terms of lounges, we've got world-renowned lounges. I think to start with, we generally don't put Etihad lounges everywhere, so just in certain destinations. So in Charlotte, probably we would not start with a local branded Etihad lounge, but it's something that as the market moves, as the market evolves, we can potentially look at it in the future.
Thank you all for coming. The news release, you can come get the print out here. We also will have
Yes.
the news release along with the link.
I have a digital one, but I can give you my contact, and I can get you in touch with our comms team as well.
All right, so I'd like to ask, why are you announcing so far in advance? You said you were in advance.
Yes.
Why so far in advance?
Yes. No, I think it's look, we like to do things with time to be able to provide that
just talking about
to the customers for their plans. I think also it was a nice coincidence that President Trump was in the UAE today.
All right, again, the press conference there, a short, sweet announcement from Charlotte Douglas Airport with Etihad Airlines coming to Charlotte starting in May of 2026. They'll go nonstop direct to Abu Dhabi. Just 15 hours on a plane. Just 15 hours. Not a problem. They do have a beautiful, beautiful airline vessel there. So if you get to do that, like to travel, that might be something to check out. The stand, on the witness stand now at the Karen Reed retrial is a new witness. The forensic scientist examining DNA is off. This is another one from the medical examiner's office. Let's listen in here live on Live Impact News on WCNC.
And how often do you undergo proficiency testing?
Every year.
In what areas do you specifically undergo proficiency testing in?
I've done proficiency tests in gunshot primer residue and physical match analysis.
And have you successfully completed each of those proficiency tests that you've taken?
I have.
Now, when you initially joined the State Police Lab, what was your position and title that you were hired for?
I was hired as a forensic scientist 1.
Now, can you please explain to the jury what your duties and responsibilities were as a forensic scientist 1?
So a forensic scientist 1 is the introductory level. It's when you start your training in whatever discipline you're going to be trained in and quality control checks. After you've been at the laboratory for over a year and you're signed off to do casework, you become a forensic scientist 2.
And you're currently a forensic scientist 2, is that correct?
Yes.
What is the difference between a forensic scientist 1 and a forensic scientist 2 at the Massachusetts State Police Crime Laboratory?
A forensic scientist 2 has been at the lab for over a year and can do casework.
Now, just in general terms, what does the trace unit do or examine within the State Police Crime Laboratory?
I'm a part of the Trace Arson and Explosives Unit. So we analyze a wide range of pieces of evidence. So trace covers a lot of small things. So paint, fibers, glass, gunshot primer residue, physical matches. Arson covers fire debris evidence, and explosives covers explosives.
Now, specifically with reference to physical match analysis, can you explain to the jury, just in general terms at first, how is that analysis performed?
So physical match analysis is piecing broken things together to see if they were at once a single item. Generally, you look at the questioned item first, the item that you don't know specifically where it came from. Look at that, and then you would look at the known item, which is an item with a known source, like specifically like this window or like this vehicle. They're analyzed at separate times, and then if it looks like there could potentially be a physical match, you would analyze them together and see if they have a mechanical fit.
Now, when you retrieve items just in general to do some sort of physical match analysis, where do you get those items from?
We have evidence storage locations at the laboratory.
And how are they typically packaged when you receive them?
They can be packaged in cardboard boxes, brown paper bags, heat-sealed plastic bags. It depends on the individual items.
And when you're doing this analysis as far as the physical match analysis, what do you do to your bench between your examination of separately packaged items?
I mean, before I do any analysis, I bleach my bench, clean my tools, and then put down a fresh sheet of butcher paper.
And why do you do that?
To make sure everything's clean.
Now, again, speaking more in general terms, on what types of evidence can you perform a physical match analysis?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Sure. In general terms, with your work within the lab, on what types of items can you perform a physical match analysis?
A lot. Anything that has a broken or irregular edge.
Would that include glass?
Yes.
Would that include plastic?
Yes.
What are some of the other things that would also include?
Any sort of like polymer, metals.
And when you're doing a physical match analysis, what instruments do you utilize in the course of that analysis?
Generally, I'll use a stereo zoom microscope. Depending on the size of the items compared, I can use other microscopes as well.
Now, what is a stereo zoom microscope?
A stereo zoom microscope is a microscope that's mounted on a stand, so it gives a wider range of view that you can look at larger items.
And how are you using that specifically in your physical match analysis of, let's say, items of plastic?
I'll use it to look at the edges and see if there's any like defining characteristics along those broken edges.
Now, as you're going through your analysis, do you document your work as you go?
I do.
And how do you do that?
With handwritten notes and with photos.
Now, at some point were you assigned to perform some work on lab case number 22-02184 pertaining to this defendant, Karen Reed?
Yes.
And what type of work were you assigned to do in this case?
I was asked to do physical match analysis, and then later on I was asked to look at, do some trace recovery, look at some debris.
And starting with the physical match analysis, how many different items approximately were you asked to look at?
Over 10.
Several, fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. And how were each of those items packaged when you received them?
So the questioned items were packaged first in a large paper bag, and then each item was individually packaged in a smaller brown paper bag within that container.
Now, again, just in general terms, because we've you've used it a couple times. When you say questioned item versus known item, as it pertains to this analysis in this case, what were the questioned items generally, and what was the known item?
The question items were items labeled as coming from a road, and the known item was labeled as coming from a taillight from a vehicle.
Now, in this case, did you perform your physical match analysis in the same manner that you've previously described based on your education, training, and experience within the lab?
Yes.
Now, initially, you had examined some various plastic and glass items, and there was a drinking straw in there as well, correct?
Yes.
And specifically, as far as the item numbers that you looked at in this physical match analysis, could you provide the jury with a list of just the item numbers first to start with?
May
Your
I?
Honor.
You have your report with you, Ms. Willett?
I do.
Okay. Is there any objection, Mr. Nady, to using the report?
No objection at all.
So feel free to use your report.
Thank you, Your Honor.
So the questioned items labeled as coming from the road were item 7-5, item 7-6, 7-8, 7-9, 7-10, 7-11, 7-12, 7-13, 7-14, 7-15, 7-16, and 7-19. And the known item labeled coming from the passenger side taillight is item 3-1.
Now, Ms. Valier, within those specific item numbers of how things are labeled at your lab, if there are different pieces associated with the same item, how is it that you labeled those, specifically in this physical match analysis here?
So some of the items had multiple pieces within that item, so I labeled them A, B, C, etc., depending on how many pieces there were.
Now, if you could, please explain to the jury just, again, the process that you followed in your examination of each of those items.
So first I looked at the questioned items, the items labeled as coming from the road. I looked at, I documented the overall package because they were all packaged in the same container, the same brown paper bag. Documented that individually. Inside of it, there were a bunch of individual brown paper bags. Documented that, and I went one at a time through them, opening each paper bag, taking written notes, taking photos of the items inside. Within each item, I looked to see if any of those pieces fit together. And I cleaned my bench in between the items.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
And Your Honor, those quotes I've shown Mr. Yannetti all in advance.
Okay. Is there an objection to any of them, Mr.
No
Nady?
objection, Your Honor.
All right, so why don't we just go ahead and mark them all as evidence?
Your Honor, if I could, I was going to take them item by item.
Okay, that's fine. Okay.
Ms. Valier, I'm showing you 4 photographs. You recognize those?
I do.
What do you recognize those to be?
These are photos that I took of item 3-1.
And again, what was the description associated with item 3-1?
Passenger side taillight.
And was that description further give sort of a specific vehicle or a license plate associated with the vehicle that the taillight came?
It does. Massachusetts 3GC684.
Your Honor, the Commonwealth will seek to introduce in a minute the next exhibit A through D.
Right, those are coming. That's why I wanted to just mark them all because they're all coming. Right?
That's fine. If the court prefers, I can provide them.
All right.
Exhibits 170A through 170D.
May I approach with the remainder, Your Honor?
Yes. And if you have them in sections, we can do that.
This way, I'm showing you 2 more photographs. Just ask if you recognize those.
I do.
And what do you recognize those?
Photos I took of item 7-5.
And again, from your report, what was the description in reference to item 7-1?
Yeah.
Thank you. You're fine. It's just loud. Yes.
Okay. Piece of plastic, red, recovered from 34 Fairview Road.
And you're on the Commonwealth to seek to introduce and admit as the next exhibit A and B.
Okay.
171 A and B.
My apologies, Your Honor. With the court's permission, may I publish some of those?
Yes.
photos to the jury? Ms. Gilman, if I could first ask for photograph 2122. And Ms. Valier, what's up on the screen, that is the bag associated with the passenger side taillight, or the known item, correct?
Correct.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 2125. And Ms. Gilman, if you could just enlarge a little bit towards the bottom where the ruler is. Now, Ms. Valier, what's up on the screen now as far as the sort of notations there, who made those?
I did.
And how do you know that you were the one who made those?
That's my handwriting, and those are my initials.
So the AMV is for your name, correct?
Yes.
And with respect to each of the items that you photographed, you had photographs that were taken of sort of what was in the evidence bag in total, displayed on your table that you would clean with the solution and everything else, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And Ms. Gilman, if you could just zoom out a little bit to show the item. And again, what's up on the screen, that is item 3-1, the known item as far as the tail light from the defendant's vehicle.
Yes.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have 2126. And Ms. Valier, if you could just describe for the jury, what are we looking at in this photograph?
Those are the same items, just turned over.
And lastly, for this set, Ms. Gilman, if I could have 2135. And again, same item as far as 3-1, the tail light taken from the defendant's vehicle.
Yes.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could ask for photograph 1905. And Ms. Valier, as far as with each of these items, you take photographs when they're inside the bag and then once you take them out of the bag, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 1908. And what are we looking at in this photograph?
The contents of item 7-5.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
We'll need two more photographs. Do you recognize those?
I do.
And what do you recognize those?
Photos of item 7-6.
And that's one of the bag and then one when the item is taken out of the bag, is that correct?
Yes.
And what was the description for item 7-6?
Piece of plastic, clear, recovered from 34 Fairview Road.
I appreciate those. Your Honor, Commonwealth will seek to introduce in a minute as the next exhibit, A and B.
Okay. 172 A and B.
And with the court's permission, may I publish those to the jury?
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 1921. And then photograph 1924. And what's depicted up on the screen is that what you just have before you as the photograph that you took of item 7-6 recovered from 34 Fairview Road.
Yes.
Thank you. May I approach the witness again, Your Honor?
Yes.
Two other photographs. You review those. Can you recognize those?
I do.
What do you recognize as?
Photos I took of item 7-8.
And one of the bag and then one of the items removed from the bag, is that correct?
Yes.
And what is the description associated with item 7-8?
piece of plastic, red and clear, recovered from 34 Fairview Road.
Call multi-seat to introduce and admit as the next exhibit, A and B. And Your Honor, with the court's permission, if I could publish those to the jury.
Yes. Exhibits 173, A and B.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 1931 and then 1934. And Ms. Gilman, if you could zoom in on those items, please. And Ms. Lair, again, what are we looking at in this photograph of item 7 dash? What are we looking at again in this photograph? Excuse me.
Photos of item 7-8.
May I approach the witness again, Your Honor?
Yes.
Two other photographs. Those. And you recognize those?
I do.
And what do you recognize those?
Photos of item 7-9 and 7-19.
And as far as the first photograph, as far as the bag, and then second were the items taken out of the bag. Is that correct?
Yes.
So 7-9 and 7-19 were contained in the same bag?
They were. I then separated them into 2 separate packages.
And as far as 7-9 and 7-19, respectively, if you could tell the jury what was the description for each of those items.
Item 7-9 was pieces of glass recovered from 34 Fairview Road. Item 7-19 is trace item, black straw, recovered from 34 Fairview Road.
Your Honor, will seek to introduce and admit as the next exhibit, A and B. May I publish, Your Honor?
Hold on.
Oh, forgive me.
74A and 174B. Now you can publish.
My apologies. Ms. Gilman, if I could have 1958, please. And then 1962. And again, Ms. Lear, what are we looking at in this photograph?
The contents of that bag, item 7-9 and item 7-19.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
Two other photographs. Do you recognize those?
I do.
And what do you recognize as?
Photos of item 7-10.
And again, one of the bag and one of the contents of the bag. Is that correct?
Yes.
And if you could, please tell the jury what was the description for item 7-10.
Piece of plastic, red, recovered from 34 Fairview Road.
I want to seek to introduce and admit as the next exhibit, A and B.
Exhibits 175A and B.
May I publish that for the jury, Your Honor?
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have 1952. And 1956. And again, Ms. Blair, what are we looking at in this photograph?
Photo of item 7-10.
Thank you. Ms. Gilman, you can take that down. May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
Two other photographs. Do you recognize those?
I do.
And what do you recognize those?
Photos of item 7-11.
And again, one photo of the bag and one photo of the items outside of the bag.
Yes.
And again, if you could, please tell the jury what the description is associated with item 7-11.
Piece of plastic, 6, red, clear, and black, recovered from 34 Fairview Road.
Your Honor, the call to seek to introduce and admit as the next exhibit, A and B.
Exhibit 176A and B.
And may I publish, Your Honor?
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, 1979 and 1982. Again, Ms. Valier, I'm sorry, Ms. Gilman, if you could zoom in just a little on the items themselves. And Ms. Valier, what are we looking at in this photograph?
Photo of item 7-11.
These are photos, again, that you took in the lab during the course of your comparative or physical match analysis, correct?
Yes.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
Two other photos, if you could look at those. Do you recognize those?
I do.
And what do you recognize those?
Photos I took of item 7-12.
And again, photograph of the bag, photograph of the items outside of the bag.
Yes.
And if you could, please tell the jury what's the description of item 7-12.
Trace item 14 glass and clear plastic recovered from 34 Fairview Road.
Now the Commonwealth will seek to introduce in minutes the next exhibit, A and B.
Exhibit 177A and 177B.
Your Honor, may I publish?
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 2015 and 2018. And again, Ms. Gilman, if you could just zoom in a little on the items. Thank you. And Ms. Valier, again, can you describe what's depicted up on the screen?
It's a photo I took of item 7-12.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
Two other photographs. Do you recognize those?
I do.
And what do you recognize those?
Photos I took of item 7-13.
And again, one of the bag and then one with the items removed from the bag.
Yes.
And if you could, please tell the jury what is the description for item 7-13.
Piece of plastic, red and black, recovered from 34 Fairview Road.
I'd love to seek to introduce in the minutes next exhibit, A and B.
Exhibit 178A and 178B.
Your Honor, may I publish?
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, 1997. And 2000. And again, Ms. Gilman, if you could, please zoom in on the items. Thank you. And Ms. Valier, directing your attention to the screen, can you describe for the jury what is depicted on the screen now?
A photo I took of item 7-13.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
Two other photos. Do you recognize those?
I do.
And what do you recognize that?
Photos I took of item 7-14.
And again, one of the bag and one of the items removed from the bag.
Yes.
And again, could you please tell the jury what the description is associated with item 7-14?
Pieces of glass recovered from 34 Fairview Road.
I want to seek to introduce the next exhibit, A and B.
Exhibits 179A and B.
May I publish, Your Honor?
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have 2009.
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus around 10:45 on a Friday morning. Listening into Live now with forensic scientists on the witness stand at the Karen Reed retrial out of Dedham, Massachusetts. Gaston College commencement underway. Congratulations, folks. Their graduation taking place at Caramont Health Park in Gastonia. That started around 10 o'clock. And bottom right-hand side of your screen is a press conference taking place out of Polk County, Florida. A very dynamic sheriff there. He's always kind of worth a listen to. But they had a big bust, a multi-agency bust in trafficking. And so they're just conducting that press conference right now. But we take you back out live to Dedham, Massachusetts.
Piece of plastic, 3 clear and 5 red, recovered from 34 Fairview Road.
The Commonwealth will seek to introduce and admit as the next exhibit, A and B.
180A and 180B.
May I publish, Your Honor?
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have 2072.
The last exhibit number,
Yes.
Yes.
And 2077, please. Again, if you could zoom just a little as far as the items are concerned. And Ms. Valier, what are we looking at in this photograph?
Item 7-15.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
Other photographs, do you recognize that?
I do.
And what do you recognize that?
Photos I took of item 7-16.
And again, one of the bag and then one of the contents from the bag, is that correct?
Yes.
And if you could, please tell the jury what was the description associated with item 7-16.
Piece of plastic, red and clear, recovered from 34 Fairview Road.
I'm also seeking to introduce the minutes of the next exhibit.
Exhibit 181A and B.
May I publish, Your Honor?
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have 2036 and 2040. And Ms. Gilman, if you could zoom in just a little. Thank you very much. And Ms. Valier, if you could, please describe for the jury what we're looking at in this particular photograph.
This is item 7-16.
Ms. Gilman, you can take that down. Now, with respect to each of these items that you examined in your physical match analysis, again, as far as the process is concerned, with the questioned items, what are you doing with reference to each of those questioned items first?
First, I document them, as you've seen. I'll see if any of those within the item have a physical match with each other. And then I'll package that away and look at all the questioned items before I compare inter-questioned items to see if there are any physical matches in between all of the 7- items.
And as far as your notes are concerned, what is it that you're noting in reference to each of those items as far as what characteristics of the item are you taking note of?
I'll note the size, the color, and the material.
And what, if any, measurements do you take of each of those respective items as well?
I'll take the length and width of each item.
Now, with respect, starting with item 3-1, the passenger side taillight from the defendant's vehicle, sort of internally within that item 3-1, what did you conclude as far as your physical match analysis within that item alone?
Within item 3-1, I believe 4 of the pieces fit together.
And, Your Honor, if the witness may refer to her notes as the... Thank you.
Yes, four of the pieces fit together within item 3-1.
And which 4 of the pieces?
Pieces A, B, D, and F.
And as far as the labeling of those pieces of an individual item, let's just start with item 3-1. A, B, D, and F, how are they labeled, and how do you sort of physically label those items?
We have a label maker in the lab, so I'll print out the case number, the item number, and then A, B, C, and my initials, and that goes physically on each of those items, or of those pieces.
So if any of those items had a sticker on it with a letter or something associated with that, that would be something that you did during the course of your physical match analysis, correct?
Yes.
Now, if I could turn your attention to item 7-5, piece of plastic red recovered from 34 Fairview Road. What did you conclude as far as your physical match analysis just within that single item?
There was no physical match noted among those 3 pieces of apparent plastic.
And when you say no physical match found from the different pieces within that item, what does that mean?
The broken edges of each piece did not align.
So the broken edges of the individual pieces within item 7-5 did not fit together with the broken edges of pieces within item 7-5, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, with respect to item 7-6, a clear piece of plastic recovered from 34 Fairview Road, what did you conclude based on your physical match analysis just pertaining to that item 7-6?
So this item was 2 pieces of colorless apparent plastic, and there was no physical match noted between those two pieces.
Now, with reference to item 7-8, red and clear plastic recovered from 34 Fairview Road, what did you conclude in regard to your physical match analysis just with the pieces contained within item 7-8?
So there were 14 pieces. Pieces C and D fit together, and pieces E and F fit together.
And when you say fit together, is there a term of art used within your field called a mechanical fit?
Yes.
And can you explain to the jury what you understand that term to mean as far as what is a mechanical fit?
So a mechanical fit and a physical match are the same thing. It's when the broken edges align together to show that they were once a single item.
Now, if I could turn your attention to item 7-9, pieces of glass recovered from 34 Fairview Road. What were you able to conclude from your physical match analysis of just the individual pieces contained within item 7-9?
So this item had 3 pieces, and no physical match was found between those.
Turning your attention to item 7-10, red pieces of plastic recovered from 34 Fairview Road. What were you able, that is a single item, is that correct?
Correct.
So no physical match because there's nothing to match, it's just one piece, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And turning your attention to item 7-11, identified as 6 red, clear, and black pieces of plastic recovered from 34 Fairview Road. What did you conclude in regard to your physical match analysis just within those pieces contained within 7-11?
So that item had 6 pieces, and there was no physical match noted among those 6.
Now, turning your attention to item 7-12, which was identified as 14 pieces of glass and clear plastic recovered from 34 Fairview Road. Again, what did you conclude from your physical match analysis just from the various pieces contained within item 7-12?
So there were 14 pieces overall. Pieces B, C, D, F, and K fit together mechanically as one unit. And then pieces E and I fit together mechanically as one unit. And pieces M and N fit together mechanically as one unit.
Now, through your examination of these pieces in particular and other pieces as well, did you note any debris contained on the pieces that you located?
Yes.
And can you say anything as far as what that debris was, or was there any analysis done of that debris specifically?
I just note that there was debris present, and I package it into a tin that's retained with the original packaging.
Now, turning your attention to item 7-13, that was a piece of plastic red and black recovered from 34 Fairview Road, is that correct?
Yes.
And again, just with respect to your physical match analysis of the various pieces of 7-13, what did you conclude?
So that item had 3 pieces, and there was no physical match noted among those 3.
And again, with reference to item 7-14, piece of glass recovered from 34 Fairview Road, that was again a single item, correct?
A single piece, yes.
So I'll turn your attention to item 7-15, 3 clear and 5 red pieces of plastic recovered from 34 Fairview Road, is that correct?
Yes.
And what were you able to conclude from your physical match analysis, again, just from the various pieces contained within item 7-15?
So there were 8 pieces in this one. Pieces F and H fit together mechanically.
Turning your attention to, lastly for this purpose, item 7-16, a piece of plastic, red and clear, recovered from 34 Fairview Road. What were you able to conclude from your physical match analysis just contained within the pieces of that single item 7-16?
So that item had 7 pieces. Pieces A, C, and D fit together mechanically.
Now, Ms. Valier, once you had examined each of those pieces individually, what did you do next in your analysis?
Next, I compared all of the inter-questioned, these items 7-5 to 7-16. I compared them to see if there was a mechanical fit amongst those, between those items.
Mr. Lally, is this a good place for our break?
That's perfect, yes, Your Honor.
All right, jurors, we'll take our morning break. We'll see you back here in about 15, 20 minutes. Next minute, you can walk out right with the jurors.
Please rise for the jury.
And can I see counsel for a minute, please?
And it looks like that trial in